Hi, welcome to YouBuild Creative. My name is Mark, and today I'm going to show you how to build this minimalist platform bed. Not only does it have 35 cubic feet of hidden storage, it also has this.
Hey guys, my name is Josh and I'm part of the YouBuild creative team. I'm the guy who does all the voiceovers and you'll see me in the videos once in a while Mark's building if he needs a hand, and I'll take on some smaller projects. But for today, make sure you check out the description below for a full project cut and supply list. There you'll find everything you're gonna need to build this amazing bed. Now this bed took about 6 hours to build in total and has a pretty hefty weight to it. And because it's a king size bed, it's really wide, which means it will not fit through a door, not even diagonally. So in our case, we used a pocket hole jig so we could dismantle and move as we need. For a more permanent solution, make sure to glue your joints before you screw or nail anything, and it'll stay forever. If you're building a king size and you don't want to move it, make sure you build it inside the room that you're going to put it in. I promise you, it'll save you some heartache. So the first thing Mark does is measure and cut the 2x3s for the top frame of the bed. He lays it all out and then uses the pocket hole jig and all the studs. The reason we're using 2x3s? Weight and price.
So I'm screwing together my outside corners on my miters on my frame, but I'm realizing I should have just used my pocket hole jig because I'm gonna have to take this apart later. I'm gonna pay for that. So make sure you don't make that mistake. So what I'm doing right now is laying out the bottom portion of the bed, or the end of the bed. The reason why I've changed the way my framing is gone is because we're gonna have to cantilever the backside because we're giving this bed a floating bed look.
So a cantilever is a way of making the end of the frame really strong. The end of our bed is not only floating over the edge, it's also doubling as a bench. So you wanna make sure when you sit on it, it's structurally sound. In our case, it's one of the strongest parts of this bed. The frame itself is built like any wall or platform. It's got 16-inch centers and can pretty much hold anything. Again, we use the pocket hole jig so we could dismantle and move as needed. Mark was tempted to just use his nail gun, but because of the size, we just couldn't do it. A framing nail has a way greater shear strength than a screw. So if you're building one that can fit through a door, feel free to use a nailer because the capping we put on afterwards hides everything. The next step is the base, which is made from a 3/4 inch plywood cut at 12-inch height to give us our storage underneath. And this one is easy. Mark cut 3 pieces at length, which you can find in the plans, and then use the jig so the screws are hidden inside the frame. We purposely left off the top of the frame because that's where the headboard will go. When screwing any corner, make sure everything is flush. You know what I noticed the most is that Mark takes his time on these. It's what separates an amateur from a pro. He makes it look easy, but it's the attention to detail that pays off in the end. Okay, so the next step is to put your frame on your base and make sure it's even on all sides. This is easily done by taking a quick measurement from the base to the edge of the frame on all 4 corners and squaring it up.
Our end goal is always to waste as little as possible. So as you can see, our skirt that's going around here, basically it's open on the one end. So when our headboard goes in there, we're gonna screw into our headboard and it'll be nice and tight, nice and sturdy.
For the headboard, we're using a full sheet of 3/4 inch plywood and using 2x3 studs to frame the back and cap it. It'll give it that nice shadow box frame look that you see. We'll talk about the capping after, but listen to Mark's pro tip on the rule of thirds before we move on.
On this bed, we're going by the rule of thirds. So basically we're 1/3 up to the top of our frame by the time we have our plywood on. And then after that, we're 2/3 the height. So we're 16 inches-ish. And then we go, if you were to measure it, 32, 48 being the top. And we're not having to cut this piece of plywood. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the cutoffs from when I made my skirt, and I'm gonna be putting them in place and putting some screws through those. So then when I put my skirt in, it's gonna lock my skirt into place. And then all I've got to do is screw through the back.
Now we move on to the hinge. And it's important to buy a piano hinge so you get that stability and evenness when opening. Basically, we tapped a couple of screws into the base to line it up, and then Mark cut some spacer studs so that we can land as many screws as we want in the frame above. After that's all done, you're definitely going to need some help for the next step. Grab a friend and have them lift the bed up to an angle sufficient enough so you can screw the piano hinge in. Now we went every other hole in the hinge, so we're sure this thing is solid. Use patience and take your time in this part, because the plumb of your bed, the squareness, depends on you screwing it in right. The next step is to put our plywood down in the frame. To save weight and money, we went with 5/8 plywood instead of 3/4 inch. And cut your length and square your corner. And screw it in flush all around your frame. And then tap a screw on every stud where the plywood meets in the middle. You can add as much or as little as you want of the screws throughout the frame if you want for more stability. Next, Mark is measuring and creating a line on the headboard so he knows where to screw in from the back. This is important to get right because you only have a 3/4 inch piece to drill into. Once you've measured and drawn your lines, go ahead and screw in your guide pieces. These are super important because it's where the two open ends of the base will connect with your headboard. Just makes it that much easier when putting your headboard in. Now we move on to capping, which is what gives us that clean, finished look on our bed. We've chosen to use 3/4 inch pine as our cap, and Mark likes to miter everything for the look it gives. But you don't have to. Butt joints work just as well at this juncture, and it's all about what you think looks best. The caps we're working on here are the edge caps around the edge of the frame. So what you do here is you measure the length of the side of the frame and mark your miter direction, so there's no confusion when cutting. It's easier than it sounds, but take your time, measure twice, make it count.
Basically, because I don't want you to see any end grain, what I'm doing is I'm mitering this piece. So I'm cutting a 45-degree angle, and it is gonna go in place. It's gonna go in place here. So instead of trying to measure the inside, which is kind of difficult, for beginners, the best thing to do is you measure from the outside to the outside of the miter, 85 and 7/16. I mark 85 and 7/16. I bring the mark over the top, and then I just draw a thin line of which way my miter goes. I'm not trying to make it exactly like my miter. Because this is my finished piece, I'm cutting on this side of the line. So, but I just did a little light drawing so I don't mix up my miter.
Next, we're going to work on our top caps, and of course, Mark will be mitering these caps on the edge. Also, make sure you're leaving a 1/2 inch gap between the caps and the mattress to leave room for the bedding. It's also important to leave that touch of overhang on the caps to give it that box frame look. Measure and cut 2 more pieces for the end bench seat. Drop them in, and then brad nail them. Now back to the headboard. Mark framed the back of the plywood on the top and the sides, which achieved 2 things. 1, it straightened out the plywood, which had a bit of a bow in it. And 2, it gives us a frame so we can cap the sides and top of the headboard. We used the pocket hole jig again to hide the screws and get a good grab across the top and the sides. We love this tool. Mark also decided to add a bottom 2x3 just for more stability to help really make that plywood straight in the back. We decided to go with a butt joint on the top caps for the headboard. We would have mitered, but didn't have the foresight in this case to shave an inch off the plywood. It's 8 feet, and our caps are also 8 feet. Wah wah. But that's okay, it still looks dope. We then threw some dark colored wood filler in the spaces, and then sanded down all the capping. We then applied Danish oil with a rag to seal it and highlight the design in the wood. It's weird, but I really love the smell of Danish oil. One of the last steps we did was for fun, and you absolutely don't have to do this, but we took some LED light tape and used electrical cord staples to attach it underneath the bed. It would be cool for your teen's bedroom, but let's be honest, you know you want this on yours too. And so there you have it, the Minimalist platform bed, complete with a super solid bench seat and 35 cubic feet of understorage. This bed is really solid and looks amazing. All told, it cost about $400 and took 6 hours to complete. One thing we didn't mention is that the platform itself should have breathing holes for your mattress. We're told if the mattress can't breathe underneath that it could be a place for moisture to build up and mold to develop. So easy peasy, take a 3-inch hole saw and make a few holes in the platform so your mattress can breathe. And thanks for watching, and if this video has helped you in any way, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Only takes a second, and it really helps us out. Stay tuned for more YouBuild creative projects, and if you have any questions or comments or ideas, leave them below and we'll do our best to answer them or do those projects. And hey, if you built this bed, please send us a photo. We'd love to see what you did. And thanks for watching YouBuild Creative, part of the North Coast Creative Network.